All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Dan Cunningham, your friendly neighborhood chiropractor. I wanted to make sure that we gave everyone a couple minutes to get on the line here. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Thursday evening. You did it, folks. Tomorrow's Friday, and we are sailing into the weekend. Super exciting. So it's been an awesome, really phenomenal year for us. And normally, like we said in the email we sent out to the tribe and to the providers we love working with, normally we do this webinar, the Perfect Storm, as an in-office workshop so that we can connect with moms and dads and answer questions. But I wanted to get one last workshop in before 2020. That's our vision. That's what we're all about here at Mother Goose Chiropractic. So I'm really excited to bring you this content because honestly, if you have a child that is struggling with behavioral, social, or academic issues, or maybe they have been labeled with a diagnosis like autism spectrum disorder, sensory processing, ADHD, hyperactivity, oppositional defiance, sensory seeker, all that, the list goes on. This is going to be an absolute game changer for you. So this evening, what I'd like to do is two things. I want to introduce ourselves. So that's me on the left there in the tie. In the middle is my lovely, talented wife, Dr. Carrie. So, and then that is our beautiful, beautiful gift from God, our son, Ananias. So we are a pediatric and family wellness office, and we take that really seriously at Mother Goose Chiropractic. You'll see on the bottom right there, we're also part of the National Wellness Foundation, meaning we are trying to transform pediatric healthcare in the 21st century. And isn't it about time? The Z-Gen, so children under 10 today, are projected to not outlive their parents. And every time I thank God for the health of my child, it's not a coincidence, it's by design. I've been getting Ananias checked and adjusted since he was 47 minutes old, and I will stake every penny I own that he's the healthiest child in Bonita Springs, Florida. That's what we're all about at Mother Goose Chiropractic. So a little bit more about our tribe. We specialize in pediatrics and pregnancy. And so we take care of a lot of mamas through preconception, through, empowering them to have the pregnancy that they want. So we're on a lot of birth teams here in Southwest Florida. And then, of course, the postpartum period. But then it starts with babies, infants, toddlers, and children. So we take care of a lot of full families. By the time I'm done here this evening, if you're wondering why would a child need to see a chiropractor, when we address the perfect storm and we understand what's at stake and what has changed in the health of children today and why children have never been sicker and how at Mother Goose Chiropractic we are trying to change and transform that, you'll understand why children need to be checked by a pediatric chiropractor, by folks like us. That's really the goal this evening. And also follow us on social media. We are very active on Facebook and Instagram. We love sharing wins. We love sharing stories of how we're changing the health and lives of families down here in Southwest Florida. So you can follow us at mothergoosechiropractic.com, of course, here on the Facebook and on Instagram, and follow our hashtags MGC Littles and MGC Tribe. So here's the plan for tonight. The 3 H's. All right, we're going to give you some hope back. You Googled, you probably changed your diet, supplements, you've maybe done the detoxes, you got to this practitioner, that therapist, this specialist, all that sort of stuff. And hopefully you've gotten a lot of help from those places. But if you were here tonight, folks, it's likely you haven't gotten all the hope and the healing that you want. So I'm going to give you a whole big dose of hope. We are hope dealers because I'm going to show you a missing link for a lot of these children, and we're going to go over how to get them the help and the healing that they need to get to a better quality of life. And here's the take home. What you have to do to change the future for your kiddo is to understand what happened to them in the past to get to this point. So knowledge is power. That's the philosopher Francis Bacon. But there's more to that story. I really want to give you guys the information and the knowledge tonight. But more importantly, we're going to give you steps to take action that's going to make a difference for your child. It's implementation on that action and the knowledge you're going to gain here tonight that's going to get you the goals, it's going to get you the results for your child. And of course, we'll have an opportunity and explain that a little bit. But before we go there, I want to start with an awareness test, and I want to make sure that this actually works on Facebook. So here is an awareness test.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? Go!
Anyone get it? Anyone guess? July, put it in the comments. No? Okay.
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Take a second look, guys. There you go, folks. It is easy to miss something you're not looking for. And that's really the root of the science and the conversation that I want to have with you guys tonight. It's easy to miss something you're not looking for. Mom and dad, if your child has struggled, like I said, with ADHD, sensory issues, OCD, ODD, anxiety, asthma, allergies, upset stomachs, coughs, the sniffles, everything in between, all that stuff, what I want to do tonight is basically just cover the single most impactful thing that you can do to help your child based on science and based on all of the kiddos and families that we've taken over the years. Hundreds of cases at Mother Goose Chiropractic. And we're going to cover one thing that happens right in front of our eyes as parents, right in front of an entire team of medical professionals, yet we miss what it's doing to our child's developing brain and nervous system and every other system of the body, and how right at the start of life, something happens to these kiddos that we're missing because we're not trained to look for. It is easy to miss something you're not looking for. So what is the perfect storm? Where did that come from? Well, basically, way back when we started taking health histories on children that had these types of struggles and these types of challenges, especially neurodevelopmental challenges, we would take health histories. We would ask, okay, tell us everything that happened up till now, and we would go back and, you know, we got a lot of stuff that moms and dads would share surrounding labor and delivery. So these 5 factors, they show up in chronological order, but before I go through them, just because your child has a diagnosis and has challenges later in life, doesn't mean they have to have had all of these 5 elements. These are sort of just the most common ingredients that we see when we take a health history, 5, general categories, basically of how the brain and the nervous system can be struggling, what happens. So first thing we hear all the time, usually with these types of cases, that there might have been a lot of stress, a lot of emotion, or a lot of challenges surrounding the pregnancy itself, either fertility, infertility issues, or once pregnant on those visits, that there was some abnormal finding on an ultrasound or a blood test, and it created an alarm, and then all of a sudden there's more ultrasounds and more interventions. And so the pregnancy journey itself becomes this sort of crisis management, high stress, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and all that neuro-emotional stress of mom worrying, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with the baby? That neuro-emotional stress isn't good because it gets onto mom's nervous system and brain. And the problem is that in utero, during that important period of development, mom's wiring is the baby's wiring. So when we have this sort of high stress, high intervention pregnancy in that kind of a labor, delivery, prenatal stage, we know now through research that leads to a greater incidence of neurological stress for children later on. All right, number 2 here, I'm going to let the moonwalking bear right out of the bag. This is the missing link. This is the one thing that is missed, even though it happens 80 to 90%, I would say, of the time in the children we see with these types of challenges. And that is intervention, which I'm going to show you guys in the research, that leads to neurological injury, and in most cases to brain and neural development. So when we say intervention, that's the collective term in the research. I'm talking about forceps or vacuum extraction, emergency C-sections, cord wraps, inductions, epidurals, Pitocin, those types of things. Any sort of assistance, which collectively, again, is called intervention, that's the core of what we're getting in tonight, where that kind of neurological stress will get into a child's brain and nervous system, and then it gets stuck on. That is what leads to a greater likelihood that kiddo is going to have difficulty latching, difficulty nursing, difficulty swallowing, reflux, indigestion, constipation. And again, when all that stuff is stressed, eating, digesting, and sleeping, when those things aren't working, we lump that together in a baby and we call it colic, right? When a stressed baby isn't eating, isn't sleeping. And Guys, what are babies supposed to do? Eat, sleep, and poop. That's it. So babies that have this sort of stress stuck on in their spine and nervous system, especially in the upper neck and the upper cervical spine that controls turning and latching and feeding and digesting, when that's interfered with and stressed from this cascade, you've got a stressed, colicky baby. Can't soothe, eat, sleep, poop, constipation, all that stuff. So I'm going to get into how we fix and restore all of these things. I want you guys to stick with me. But again, the biggest challenge that we are seeing in pediatric healthcare world today, mom and dad, is that you have been told again and again that these things are normal, that oh, it's okay, it's normal, they'll grow out of it. And they are not normal, they're common. When a child is fussy and it's not latching well or it's refluxing and they have multiple ear infections and multiple rounds of antibiotics in the first few months of life, and then they're sick, and then there's the speech delays and the motor delays and the sensory issues, and you get told, oh, that's just some kids, they'll grow out of it. I'm here to flip your perspective in a big way tonight, guys. I'm here to tell you the truth. These things aren't normal, they're common. And a stressed, wound up, colicky baby is a sensory, wound up kiddo later in life. They don't grow out of all these challenges in infancy and early development. This stuff doesn't go away. It changes form. They grow into sensory and neurodevelopmental issues later on. And because the problem is we still have a general healthcare system that says, well, that's normal. Let's wait and see. Here's your baby Nexium, your baby Prilosec for the reflux. Here's your amoxicillin. Well, let's just see how it goes. The problem with that is the nervous system is developing so quickly. A baby's brain is wiring so quickly. It develops more in a day than ours does in a year. That's amazing. So the danger is that any window we miss early on by saying, well, let's just wait and see how it goes, that leads to a stressed, sick, struggling infant. And then that kind of brings us to the doorstep of what we're really talking about tonight. By the time these kiddos are 18 to 24 months, already seeing signs of sensory spectrum, ADHD, ODD, anxiety, sensory stuff. They're diagnosing it earlier and earlier. And in toddlers, it might be trouble with transitions or moods and meltdowns at school and at home. But VP and kindergarten, later and up, once they're in the system, someone was going to notice those behaviors. Someone was going to notice those struggles and those signs and symptoms of a child whose brain and nervous system are stuck. And then they get formally diagnosed as an ADD, a sensory, or a spectrum. And that's a child whose brain and nervous system are stuck. So what do I mean by that? That's the story of the perfect storm. It starts early on and often in this very sensitive early period of brain development, and it leads to this. This is another way to kind of understand how stresses and strains of early life can kind of stack up and confuse and overwhelm the brain and the nervous system. And when the brain and the nervous system get overwhelmed from stress, not just emotional stress, guys, there's physical, chemical, and emotional stressors, the birth process just being one of the biggest ones that we see in children today. These stresses stack up, they confuse and overwhelm the brain and the nervous system, and it leads to one thing: stress stuck on. It leads to a state of stress stuck on. And because all those things, all the toxicity, all the emotion, all the physical stress during the labor and the delivery, those inductions, cesareans, that stressed out baby, that wound up toddler is, a sensory overwhelmed preschooler, kindergartner. All that stress just leads to more stress because that's how the brain's firing and wiring, if that makes sense. Those first few months and years of a child's life, the brain and the nervous system are the most plastic and impressionable. Neuroplasticity, it means that we have total influence over how the brain fires and wires. But when that child, all those experiences early on, determines how the brain becomes wired for things later in life. So when they react and deal with things, a stressed up, wound up, crying, colicky baby becomes a stimming, sensory-seeking, impulsive, overreacting kiddo later in life. That's just how the brain wires and develops when they're stuck on stress. So the physical trauma I want to talk to you about is the birth process. And I do want to park on toxins just for a minute because I know that has been a really big thing in healthcare in general, and just social consciousness and in the culture. When it comes to toxins and chemicals, guys, obviously, moms and dads, if your child is struggling, I'm sure you have Googled all over, and you probably read about, gluten-free and casein-free and glycophosphate and Monsanto, red dye 40 and goat's milk and, everything in between. And honestly, thank God, because toxins absolutely are stressful to the body and to the nervous system. So clearing that out for your kiddo is certainly really, really important. Those holistic options are really important. But toxins aren't new to our world. Toxins aren't good, but they're not new. My parents, your parents grew up with cigarette smoke and asbestos. Okay? What's changed is these other two layers of stress, the physical trauma and the mental emotional trauma. Those two layers for this generation have gone through the roof. And those are the two greatest influences that we see that get the brain and the nervous system stuck on what we call the gas pedal mode. It is that stress stuck on. The gas pedal mode is the sympathetic fight or flight stress part of the nervous system. In our office, we take care of a lot of kiddos. We like to keep it simple. The brain can run the body through two states. You've got the gas pedal and the brake pedal. You've got your fight or flight response, and you've got your rest and repair. All right? So the gas pedal mode, the sympathetic mode, the fight or flight response, as those of you know, it is a short-term survival response. It's a short-term survival response. Now, why is that important? Because when it gets stuck on, when one side of the brain and the nervous system gets stuck on, and a child's brain and nervous system fire that way and wire that way, and that stress leads to more stress, that overwhelm spills into other systems. And because children, and most individuals to be healthy, but children especially, should be spending the most of their time in that brake pedal mode, that parasympathetic, rest, digestion, relaxation, growth, development. That is your healing, relaxing, digesting, focusing, mood, immune function. It's where all those things live. Because if you see the quote down there at the bottom by a former professor of mine, Dr. Bruce Lipton, the body can't be in growth and protection at the same time. So these kids get stuck in this sustained fight or flight, revved up gas pedal overdrive you see on the left. It's that gas pedal. The brain is revved up. And as a pediatric chiropractor, guys, the word we use for this is subluxation. Subluxation. It means stress stuck on. I'm going to use that word here out. I wish we had a better one. We don't. It just means that the spine and the nervous system are stuck. And I'm going to show you the science and the neurology next of how when the brain and the nervous system gets shifted and stuck, what happens when a child is there early and often, because the natural output of an overstimulated, stuck on stress nervous system, what we're talking about tonight, ADHD and sensory and everything in between. The problem with that is that even at rest, these kiddos are in such overdrive. They are so revved up. They don't rest well. It's hard to fall asleep. It's hard to stay asleep. They have trouble with transitions and changes in routine and goal setting and filling out steps in a project at school. They have trouble slowing down to focus to do their homework. To use a car analogy, those of you that know us at the practice, I'm a big car guy. I have a couple classic Pontiacs, big car guy. Think of it this way. These children, their brains and nervous systems are idling at 5,000 RPMs. They are so revved up. There is no gap. There's no room or slack for the brain. So when you change something in their environment, when you change something in their routine, and they redline, and that kiddo's world, it looks like ADHD or impulsivity or ODD, behavioral, social, anger, aggression, anxiety, moods, meltdowns, all that kind of stuff. So here's what I want to give you a little bit of hope, guys. Your child isn't misbehaving, okay? If they are stuck on stress, they are not misbehaving. They are modulating their sensory experience. The behavior is an output. The behavior is an effect. First, you fix the input, which is the science and the neurology behind what we do in pediatric chiropractic. First, you fix the input. That's my job. When we do scans and an exam and an assessment, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, my job is to get them better, to turn back on the brake pedal, to see where the nervous system imbalance is, and then to help calm and stimulate and reboot that brain and nervous system and shift them back to that brake pedal, rest, repair mode. All right, and the most important concept that I could explain here, all right, another quote by my former professor, Bruce Lipton, the function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and to coordinate the behavior of all other cells. Now, mom and dad, if you guys have a child that's been struggling with social, behavioral, academic issues, they've been diagnosed with one of these challenges we've been talking about, your eyes probably zoomed right to that word behavior that was bolded, right? Okay, I understand. So here's the thing. The behavior is the output. The behavior is the effect. So it is the job for the brain to perceive and coordinate the body to the environment. But the behavior is an output. It's an effect of an overstimulated, stressed out system. So when all the brain and the nervous system of a child have ever known, or is that kind of high stress, high intervention, like we talked about, when they get stuck in that gas pedal mode, and then that's where their brain and nervous system are idling. But then you try and change behavior, you try and change everything in that kiddo's world with like rewards and the star charts. You know, if you get enough greens, we can go for an ice cream or 15 more minutes on the tablet. When you try that carrot on the stick behavior reward cascade, it can be heartbreaking. You set a goal and they're so revved up, they're so stressed out, they try and get there, but they can't, and they fail. And that can be tough for moms and dads and kiddos. And the flip side of trying to just influence the behavior, guys, you might have some grandparents that think, they know better, that, oh, they just, back in my day, they were tough on stuff like this and kids cut it out. You just need more discipline, right? The negative consequences, putting that in play, that's difficult to try and change behavior from that end as well. And we understand that. So, and everything in between, behavioral therapies, all that type of stuff. The problem with this, guys, this is really the approach that most parents, most therapists, and most professionals will take, is to try and just focus on the behavior. And the problem with focusing on the behavior, like I said, is that you are working on an effect. You are working outside in to try and change the brain, and it's not always very effective. All of these challenges, the sensory and the ADD, all that type of stuff, those are neurological perception and coordination challenges. They are input problems that create output problems. So the reason the child overreacts to the environment or in the classroom or in a new social setting or with their siblings at home, it's because the body is perceiving those stimuli in the environment as a fight or flight stress. That is all they've known. That's how the brain has been wired to coordinate, behave, and react. It's the sympathetic, hyperactive, anxious, kind of agitated response, right? So to help these kiddos, because all these issues are really rooted in the nervous system, what we have to do is improve their perception and coordination by the brain and the nervous system. And then the output, the behavior and the struggles and the challenges, those all come along for the ride. So you probably at this point might have the $1 million question, like, okay, so you're a chiropractor. I thought you guys just dealt with back and neck pain. What on earth does this have to do with chiropractic? I thought you guys worked with spines. And the answer is we absolutely do. But what you've got to understand is that our greatest influence is not on stiff necks and sore backs. I mean, yes, we do take care of adults and moms and dads too. And if you're struggling with aches and pains, we love you and appreciate you. We can absolutely help. But the reality is that because the spine and the nervous system, you can see over here, this rainbow chart, that's the spine flowing forth from the brain. The spine is just a big perception and coordination conduit. It's a big circuit breaker, okay? So that should be the light bulb moment, as why are you listening to a pediatric chiropractor talk about these kind of challenges? Why in the heck would a chiropractor be talking about this? Because our greatest influence is not over pain, it's over neurology. And so what I'd like to do in this next section here, we're going to run through them. We call them the 4 Ds. All right, so there is some sort of stress, some sort of intervention, some sort of something that happens early in a child's life that trips the brain into that revved up, stress stuck on, sympathetic fight or flight overdrive. That's subluxation. These 4 Ds, they are 4 neurological cascades that happen in neurology and physiology. I'm going to break it down and make it really easy to understand, because if you understand the 5 steps in the perfect storm cascade that we went over, the 5 most common things we see that lock a child's brain and nervous system, these 4 Ds will show how they work in a sequence and a cascade that will lock a child's brain and nervous system into this state of stress stuck on. All right. So the first one, the first D, is dyskinesia. Dyskinesia. All that means, kinetics is the study of movement and alignment. All right. So some of those physical challenges that I want to show you guys next, especially intervention and injury at birth to the spine, to the neck, and to the brainstem, that is the most susceptible area early in life, upper cervical spine of an infant. It sets up this first D, which is, again, dyskinesia. So kinetics, just the study of movement and alignment. Dyskinesia means lack of proper movement and motion. So we are talking about physical, kinetic, misalignment. Now, where does that come from? All right, guys. So this is not for the squeamish. All right, this is another video I wanted to show you very briefly. This, if you have children watching with you, this is a video of a cesarean section. I would have them look away, and if you're squeamish, then this might not be for you. But I really, I don't want to pull the rug out from under you guys and totally shift gears on you, but I need you guys to understand what has changed in our healthcare system, what is putting this in play with our kiddos that we are missing, that we are absolutely missing, and it's affecting the health and integrity of the child and their brain and their nervous system right from the very first moments of life. All right, so here it is. This is the moonwalking bear. Here it comes, guys, right here. Right there. Look at that. So that is the moonwalking bear, all right? Not for the squeamish, but that is the root and the core of the science and what has changed so dramatically over this last generation, guys. It's the way we are bringing children into the world. And I know it seems so simple and so easy, but I got to tell you, it's so easy to understand, yet this incredibly complex healthcare system that we have, it doesn't understand how in all these developing countries we're literally simultaneously putting this in play, and we're missing how easily the science connects to all these challenges, all these health issues, all these sensory ADD, allergies, asthma, where it's all coming from. We are damaging their neurology at the very moment of life. So here's the story. The majority of these kiddos that are entering the world, again, forceps, vacuum extraction, emergency C-sections, cord wraps, inductions, epidurals, Pitocin. And then we got doctors' hands on the child, lifting, twisting, and pulling the child into the world. Here's why that matters. We work with a lot of OBs. I have great respect for the profession of obstetrics. It's just that after this, children are not being checked by pediatric chiropractors, and that neurological injury is festering, and it is affecting how the brain grows and develops, and it is affecting the health of children today. This generation has never been sicker, and it's because the brains and nervous systems are stressed from these type of birth injuries. It's what we see day in, day out. That is all we are fixing in our office in children. Whatever the health condition, whatever the issue, this is what we treat. This is how we can help. And again, postpartum mamas, when they come back, pregnancy plans include a postpartum visit where we are blessed and honored to check, even after a normal, healthy, natural vaginal birth. Sometimes those forces can create misalignment fixation, a lot of pressure very quickly over a short period of time. So we exist to make sure that every children has a chance to get checked for subluxation, to make sure they don't have any stress in their spine, their delicate upper neck, and developing brain and nervous system, so they can grow and express and be aware and have the best quality of life. That's what we do. And again, why that's important, I'm going to go back really quick. Why that's important is this area, this upper neck area, is one of the most susceptible and unprotected parts of a baby beginning at the start of life, forever, for all of us. That upper cervical, that brainstem region, that connected area between the brain and the body, which is where all perception and coordination of neurological function, all of that controls all the other cells and systems of the body, all that sensory processing, neurological processing, right between that dock's thumb and forefinger there, guys. It's where it all happens. It's the most advanced, important, specialized part of the nervous system. What you got to understand, the brain is a giant sensory receptor. It's a giant perception coordination conduit. And all the input has to go through there. And those babies' neck muscles are not developed. They have no idea how to deal with gravity, much less how to protect their neck. And this is the first few moments of life. So when you grab hold of them, and I understand this might not be what you expected when you jumped on this webinar, but when we lift and twist and pull them into the world, this moonwalking bear that everyone is missing, we're not the only ones saying this. Pediatric chiropractors, we're just the only ones doing anything about it. These babies are having dyskinesia, physical, kinetic misalignment and trauma happening to the neck and the brainstem at birth, and we're calling it normal. And guys, it's not normal. It's common. We just passed 30% in Lee and Collier, 30% cesarean rate. And again, if that was your pregnancy journey, your pregnancy story, there's nothing wrong with that. 5 to 10% of those are medically necessary. That's the World Health Organization. But guys, It's the rest of them. It's the scheduled ones. It's the ones of convenience, or the ones that, prophylactically or whatever. We're changing the way we are bringing children into the world. And it's not normal. It's common. So here's a study done recently by researchers in 2015. So you can see the term up there on the top left that says somatic dysfunction. Again, that's subluxation. That's the dyskinesia. That's that misalignment. Somatic just means structure. So these were providers that were feeling the skull, the cranium, and the cervical spine in babies to get them checked to make sure everything was moving and grooving the way that it should. All right? These were healthy babies that their nervous systems had not been stressed long enough for health challenges to even manifest. Okay? And what the study showed was that they found in 99 out of 100 infants, at least one pattern of subluxation was found. All right? They also concluded that the longer the labor, the longer the delivery, and the more intervention, the more severe case of somatic dysfunction, the more severe case of subluxation they had. So in the research, we call them the 5 A's: ADHD, asthma, allergies, autism, Asperger's. They're all going up like a hockey stick. What has changed? We have changed the way we are bringing children into the world. We've changed the way we're bringing children into the world. And what we do when we do that is we're setting up the nervous system, which controls all other cells, tissues, and organs. When that nervous system goes into sympathetic stress early on in life, guys, it gets stuck. So does every other system. And that's why these kiddos have neurological and behavioral and emotional issues, communication issues, motor and speech delays, low flexor and core tone, the sensory issues, the concentration and the cognitive issues, immune function, gut, digestive, that all is affected by the nervous system. And when that nervous system is stressed early on in life and the body gets stuck in this stress sympathetic mode, so does every other system of the body. That includes the immune system and the gut. And I'll park here for just a second. I could show you guys a dozen other studies showing intervention early in birth setting up for chronic immune weakness. I'm talking about the RSV, the chronic colds, those coughs that don't quit, sinus infections, bronchitis, ear infections, tonsils, adenoids, allergies, asthma, all that stuff. Guys, subluxation, sympathetic stress stuck on, also weakens the immune system. So kiddos that we see with neurodevelopmental challenges, hyperactivity, behavioral, sensory stuff, sometimes they also have chronic immune challenges, and sometimes they overlap. They don't always go hand in hand, but we see that a lot. And where that all comes from is once this dyskinesia, once this misalignment is in play, it becomes an input problem. That misalignment becomes an input problem for the brain, which is not good at all because neuromotor interference is disastrous, especially for early childhood brain development. Mom and dad, you guys know the milestones are crucial. They always ask, do they hit their milestones, right? When are they walking? When are they crawling? Are they turning their head side to side? Are they lifting their head up? Developmental milestones, motor milestones are crucial for proper cognitive and behavioral and social and emotional development later on in life. Why is that? Because proper joint movement and motion is critical for the brain. Critical for the brain. I'm going to explain that more when we talk about the second D, and that is disafferentation. Disafferentation. So what happens when subluxation, when that stuckness is in there, in a joint that's not moving properly, it irritates the brain, it sets the body up for disafferentation, okay? Afferent just means input, okay? That's incoming sensory neurological information. Afferent is input, all right? So when a child has a subluxation, that shuts down the perception of proper movement in the spine, which is why you probably know people that have tried, movement-based therapies, PT, OT, things of that nature, which are great, which are super effective and super important. But when proper perception of movement is shut down, it opens up the gate for nociception or noise, all right? So physical kinetic misalignment causing bad, negative, noisy input into the brain, all right? That is where we see the ADD, the sensory, the spectrum, the ODD, the moods and the meltdowns. Those things are output problems that affect the behaviors, and really what these kiddos have are noisy, distracted, disconnected brains. Noisy, distracted, disconnected brains, because they have this subluxation noise that is bombarding their brains early and often. That's where that's coming from. So the term for proper perception of movement is proprioception, all right? That's why this is a chiropractic conversation through and through, because 60% of that brain, that proprioceptive input, that healthy joint movement and motion that acts as a nutrient to the brain, it comes from proper spinal movement and motion. It charges the brain like wind to a windmill. 1/3 of it comes from the muscles and joints just in the upper neck, where those are the most important for the brain to perceive what's going on in the environment. That's the exact same area that we see is affected in a difficult labor and delivery and birth process. So, subluxation, to put this whole thing together, when we subluxate it, when we injure it during birth or other intervention, when we distort and damage its function, it leads to dyskinesia, physical kinetic misalignment, and then that leads to disafferentation, which leads to subluxation, stress stuck on, which leads to our third D, and that is dysautonomia. That is where all that garbage input noise bombards the brain, and the brain can't make sense of it. So it goes into full sympathetic overdrive, where the brain can't coordinate, can't perceive properly. And that's what turns on that gas pedal, fight or flight, stress stuck on. And that's important, again, because you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. The more it's stuck on, and the earlier it's stuck on, and the greater it's stuck on, the more challenged that child is later in life, because that's how the brain wires, and nerves that fire together wire together, and that locked in stuck pattern becomes that child's whole world. So the fourth D, and I know I've been heavy on the science here, guys, but I need you to understand this. The fourth D is dyskinesis. All right? This is abnormal energy output. Okay? Remember, improper movement or motion, garbage input, the brain can't figure it out, so you have garbage in, you have noisy, disconnected brain, and you get garbage out. This is all the stuff in your kiddo's life that is stressing you out, that stresses the child out, that you wonder why they can't handle. Changes in routine and transitions and noisy public places, or the car rides where they go crazy, or when mom tries to run the vacuum and the kiddo starts screaming. It's also the same reason, garbage in, garbage out, why they can't sit and concentrate and do their homework or complex tasks. This is also why they can't fall asleep or stay asleep, why they can't, fight out the allergies and the colds. It's because that brake pedal growth and repair and development part of the nervous system is shut down. And this subluxation stress stuck on means that calming, relaxing, connecting, digesting part of the nervous system is shut down. So diets, detoxes, medications, other therapies, you are working uphill against outputs and effect. You're working uphill against the set point of a child's brain and nervous system. Abnormal energy out. So this is where I want to give you guys a whole big dose of hope, like I promised, all right? So this is what we do to calm and connect the brain so a child can heal. We wake up the other half of the nervous system, the brake pedal half, the parasympathetic, the perception, coordination, the focusing, behavior, digestive, immune function, that side of the nervous system. We do that to overcome a kiddo's health challenges. We have to awake that brake. We have to re-stimulate and reactivate and turn back on that brake pedal half of the nervous system. And the reason for that is, again, guys, that's our growth mode. That's our healing mode. So what we do in pediatric chiropractic resets the input. That allows the brain to calm and reconnect so the nervous system can appropriately coordinate the output. That's when the outputs improve. That's where the behavior gets better, or the meltdowns disappear, or they decide they can wear a few more shirts in the closet instead of just those two that you got to keep washing because they have the tags pulled off in just the right way. Or they stop stimming and slamming doors, and they don't chew their pencils in their shirts anymore. Or scream every time that you get in the car and go for a ride because of all that visual stimuli, or when you go to the hockey game or into Costco. That's where all the stuff comes along for the ride. And this is why we love working with PTs and OTs and behavioral and cognitive providers, because we love working with them because, as you see, we normalize the input so the system can better perceive and coordinate. And now you've got a kiddo that is neurologically an open book, so they can develop and respond to the diet and to the therapies so much better, 1,000,000 times better when a pediatric chiropractor is part of the team. And that's why it's the moonwalking bear, guys. That's why subluxation is really the missing link to this whole thing. So here's another $1 million question. What can you do about it, and how the heck can you help it? Well, this is a scan that we do in our office just out of curiosity. It is non-ionizing, completely painless, no radiation, takes about 5-10 minutes. First thing we need to figure out is this sympathetic stress stuck on a part of your child's life, or is it not? So this is some of the advanced technology we use in the office because we wanted to literally be able to see and measure and quantify. No needles, no radiation. Basically, we measure two things, temperature and electrical activity. It is quick and painless. So we run these meters over the spine, which remember is just a big perception and coordination neurological conduit. It's not just tissues, bones, discs, and ligaments. It's a perception and coordination conduit. And when it's distorted or damaged or subluxated, we distort and damage our child's neurological development and function. So what these scans can do is they can tell us, is there stress, is there subluxation? So this is a kid that came to us dealing with a lot of different things. Speech, hyperactivity, she had anxiousness, immune issues, some digestive stuff as well, not sleeping very well at all as well. So kind of had it all. All you need to know for the purposes of the scan, guys, is that white is normal and red is severe. So this is a child that was an emergency C-section, which caused that dyskinesia, that misalignment. And that red is showing stress or noise or irritation of the nerves in the upper neck. Think about it this way. For a child's sensory system, that is Metallica on high volume in the background all the time, that the brain has to filter out and try to not be thrown off. That's how the motor development and neuromotor development, I should say, gets thrown off. So after care with us, this girl's sensory issues evaporated. She stopped stimming. She's sleeping well. Her immune system is boosted. Her speech went back on track. All of those challenges, not because pediatric chiropractic is a cure for any of these conditions, but because we find that stress, we find areas of subluxation in the child's spinal nervous system. And here's the secret sauce, guys. With a gentle, safe, easy, effective adjustment, we clear it, we calm it, and we balance it. And when that stress gets off your child's nervous system, they're no longer stuck on that gas pedal mode. And then the brain can shift all that energy back to developing and growing and relaxing and healing like they're supposed to. It's what children are supposed to be doing. So to be clear, chiropractic doesn't treat autism. We don't treat sensory processing. We don't treat anxiety. We don't treat allergies. We don't treat ADHD. The reason those things all get better is because we remove stress and interference to the brain and the nervous system, so a child's natural, innate, inborn healing and functioning system can do the job that it's always wanted to do. Your child has been trying to heal this whole time. So I wanted to share a couple of other success stories with you. So this is Dylan. Dylan's one of my favorite little guys. Dylan, I told you that sympathetic dominance, that stress stuck on, weakens the immune system. He came to us with chronic immune challenges, and he and his little brother there, they were kicking coughs, flus, and colds back left and right. He'd actually had a chronic bronchitis that had not responded to antibiotics. He was a cesarean. You can see all that red in the upper neck? Again, that's where that stress stuck on. That irritation was suppressing his immune system. His brain was stressed, so it never booted up his immune system properly. He wasn't able to fight and clear the colds and the coughs. Started getting him checked and adjusted. You can see on the right there how clear and beautiful and white that scan is. And he's healing better, sleeping better, and he gets sick less. The chronic colds and the cough are gone. It doesn't mean that children never get sick, but instead of a system that's overwhelmed, that's overtaxed, where the littlest sniffle turns into bronchitis or a bacterial infection overnight, now the coughs and sniffles, they resolve within a couple of days. Naturally, beautifully, his body's able to heal. So that's more of an immune challenge case. That being said, this is Mikey, my man Mikey. Mikey reminds me of me when I was a little kid, believe it or not. As you can see there on the left, again, tremendous amount of core tension and stress in that nervous system. So Mikey, when he came to us, was having serious behavioral issues in VPK. He was getting sent home from VPK 3 times a week. Can you imagine having to call your spouse or significant other and having to take time off work and leave work early or take your lunch break 3 times a week to go and pick up a child because they were having behavioral issues? That's severe. Well, we got his nervous system calm and reconnected. We got him on a plan, and he developed beautifully. It was funny. About halfway through his treatment plan, he ran in one day and said, Doc, I got 2 greens. And I didn't know that was the behavioral grading system. It was like a stoplight grading system. in his VPK. So he got 2 greens instead of red lights. He got green lights. He was really, really happy to come in and tell me about that. And I need to update this slide because since he started with us, he's now on wellness care. He's out of the woods and growing and developing and thriving. He has been student of the week, actually not twice, it's actually 3 times since we've been taking care of him. Got to update the PowerPoint here. So now here's the thing, guys. You know, pediatric chiropractic, this is a very unique specialty and focus in chiropractic care, especially within my profession. But this type of neurologically based pediatric chiropractic, we are so blessed to have the tools and the skills and the science on our side. And Dr. Carey and I, countless hours of training and case management. We take our jobs very seriously. We are very blessed to be able to do this, to be able to heal children. It is the most rewarding thing I can think of. It is why I get out of bed in the morning. And honestly, if you guys take action, your child can experience it too. So again, Dylan, all the Dylans and Mikeys of the world, Mikey's entire life has changed. He is calmer now. He is more focused now. He smiles and plays and interacts with his friends better now. Mom and Dad say he listens to instructions. He looks forward to going to school, gets ready in the morning instead of, that nightmare dreading getting ready, brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, not wanting to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. He loves going to school now. So, all that stuff that a family has to go through to get better for a lot of these kids, it's fantastic. But I love the effect of that, guys. I love to see the effect on a child, on a family, on a marriage. All that stuff goes away, and when life comes back online for a kid, when they smile, when they communicate, when they're able to look at you and focus and tell you about their day, when they can get a restful night's sleep, when they get invited to the birthday party and mom gets choked up and says thank you, that's why we do what we do. And I know that every parent, if you are watching, every parent wants that for their child in every way. And we want that for Ananias' generation and all future generations. And that's what we do at Mother Goose Chiropractic. Not to see children struggle, but to see them thrive and meet their full potential. That is what we do. That is how we can help. So, healthier kids, better outcomes. Across the board, guys, no matter what the challenge and the struggle is, children that get under care with us, as we get them better, across the board, better move and improve behavior, they get sick less, and they have better quality sleep. That echoes the research, but those are the feedback that we get from parents day in, day out, especially once we get a kiddo healed and stabilized and onto wellness. So that is what we do. Now are the action steps. I told I was going to leave you guys with some action steps to affect some change for your child. So look, number one, if you found your way onto this webinar, if you tuned in live or this was shared by someone who cares about you, it's probably because you're asking questions or you've been asking questions and looking for a better way to health for your child. So keep asking questions. And I'm just going to be frank. If you run into a healthcare provider, and I don't really care what the letters are after their name, but if they don't let you ask questions, if they don't listen intently and give you honest, evidence-based answers and listen to you and to your struggles to get you the answers you need, you probably need to keep asking questions and move on and go to someone who can listen first and answer those questions for you to get you the healing your child needs. So I really hope I answered some questions for you folks tonight. Not going to lie, I hope I really raised some questions too. All right, and the answer you're looking for is yes. Yes, we can help your child. I'm a dad, and I'm a doctor that takes care of kids, and through listening to parents, just like you guys, we have asked better questions for the children we take care of, and for my son, Ananias. And tonight, I went into some of the science, and I went into some of the stories, because I have found the better answers. That is what we do at Mother Goose Chiropractic. So let me land the plane on the most important thing you can do for your child, for their developing brain and nervous system, and for their health today and for the rest of their life. And that is to get your child scanned and checked for subluxation. So before I end tonight, that is what we do in our office. So if you're interested in that, if this has been shared with you, you're tuned in live, you reach out to us, shoot us a DM, what have you. Our front desk can set that up. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I want to hear your health history. I want to hear your story. Take a look and examine your child. And once we get the scans and once we get the data, then we know. We don't have to guess. I can know. I can point to and show you where the brain and the nervous system is stressed and stuck and show you a plan to get their system unstuck, to reboot, to re-stimulate and activate the calming, relaxing, healing part of the brain so your child can focus on growing and developing and thriving. That is what we do. That is why we exist. All right? I always like to end with this quote. I thought of this a couple years ago. Trust me, your child is not misbehaving. They're not cursed. They're gifted. They're smart. If they have a noisy, disconnected brain, they're misbehaving because the input has gone awry, and that's affecting the output, which is their quality of life, the behavioral, the social, the academic, the struggles, the meltdowns. I understand. What you guys have to understand is that there is no limit to your child's potential with a clear connection. And that's what we do at Mother Goose Chiropractic. That is what pediatric chiropractic is all about. So I love and appreciate you guys. And if anyone's on here live and is curious or has any questions, you guys go ahead and feel free to comment. And also, please tag, like, and share. I'm on here trying to get this information out there. We have a wonderful network of providers that we work with in Southwest Florida. We work with behavioral therapists, cognitive therapists, OTs, PTs, family counselors, awesome pediatricians here in the Southwest Florida area. And we're really just trying to get the information out there. So I hope you guys found this information helpful. And again, it doesn't really matter. Part of the National Wellness Foundation, if you're thinking of, your friend who's in Wisconsin, whose sister has a kiddo that is just absolutely they're beside themselves. They've tried everything and the child is stuck and their health's being affected. Part of what we do in the National Wellness Foundation is we have a network of doctors, pediatric chiropractors across the country that share this very unique neurologically based pediatric specialty. And we can find someone for you. So if you're thinking of someone, but maybe they're not in Florida, maybe they're not in the Gulf Coast area, that's okay. Shoot us a DM. Be happy. You get us a zip code. We can find you someone to be able to help. So as always, Mother Goose Tribe and sunny Southwest Florida, we love you. If we're going to be of service in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. We love and appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for being here.